Ever wake up feeling like you're playing by rules you never quite agreed to? Like there's an invisible script for your life, drafted by someone else, that you're just expected to follow. Think about it, the relentless pressure to curate a flawless online persona, constantly chasing an elusive ideal of engagement and popularity on social media. The narrow, often predetermined, career paths laid out for us from adolescence, sometimes subtly compelling us into choices that feel less like personal aspiration and more like inescapable societal obligations. Or the pervasive, often unspoken expectations regarding our appearance, our relationships, our consumption habits, even our very definitions of success and happiness, expectations that aren't written laws, but can feel as binding as any legal decree. We navigate a world ostensibly brimming with individual choices and freedoms, yet so many of us experience a persistent, low hum of constraint, a nagging sense that our agency is constantly being subtly eroded by forces larger and more abstract than ourselves. These aren't physical shackles, no, but if you're honest, don't they often feel just as restrictive, just as limiting to your authentic self and your true potential? Centuries ago, an enigmatic, often controversial, but undeniably brilliant thinker named Jean-Jacques Rousseau articulated this profound tension with a shocking simplicity that still reverberates with startling clarity today. He famously declared, "Man is born free, and everywhere he is in chains." Let that sink in for a moment. Man is born free, a powerful, almost primal assertion of inherent, unburdened liberty, evoking images of a pristine state, unmarred by convention or coercion, a birthright of pure, unadulterated potential. Yet, immediately, the devastating counterpoint, and everywhere he is in chains. Not in some isolated corners, not sometimes, but everywhere. These aren't merely the literal physical manacles that certainly existed in his time, but the intricate, often invisible, web of laws, customs, institutions, and expectations that define, shape, and frequently confine human existence from the very moment of birth. From the cradle to the grave, we find ourselves enmeshed in a social fabric woven from obligations, duties, and structures that we as individuals never explicitly chose, never personally consented to, yet are profoundly compelled to obey. Rousseau's powerful paradox forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth about our modern world. In many ways, our technologically advanced, interconnected society, with all its promises of liberation and self-expression, might actually be the most sophisticated system of chains ever devised. Consider how the very algorithms designed to personalize our experiences can subtly steer our opinions, narrow our perspectives, and even dictate our spending habits, creating echo chambers that reinforce existing beliefs rather than fostering true intellectual freedom. Think about the educational systems that, while undeniably vital for societal advancement, often prioritize conformity and standardized metrics over cultivating genuine curiosity and independent thought, preparing individuals for specific roles within an existing economic structure rather than empowering them for boundless self-determination. The promise of security, comfort, and belonging comes with an often unseen price, the gradual erosion of that innate, radical freedom Rousseau spoke of. We sign terms and conditions without reading them, internalize societal norms without questioning them, and pursue predefined pathways without truly examining if they align with our deepest sense of self. Are we truly choosing our lives, or are we simply making choices within a predetermined, heavily incentivized, and subtly manipulative maze? This isn't an invitation to anarchy or a call to reject society wholesale. Rather, it's an urgent invitation to understand the fundamental architecture of our collective existence. How did we arrive at this peculiar state where our freedom feels both abundant and profoundly restricted? What kind of liberty have we implicitly traded away, and what, if anything, have we gained in return? And, crucially, is there a legitimate path to reconcile individual liberty with the necessities of communal living? How can we construct a society that genuinely serves freedom rather than merely containing it? Rousseau, grappling with these exact foundational questions of political philosophy nearly 3 centuries ago, offered not just a scathing critique of his contemporary world, but also a revolutionary, albeit controversial, blueprint. His seminal work, The Social Contract, dared to imagine a society where individuals could be truly free, even while living together under the rule of law. It's a book that profoundly challenged the prevailing notions of authority, consent, and the very nature of human government, suggesting a radical reimagining of the social compact itself, a new way of thinking about the very foundations of legitimate power and authentic freedom. In this deep dive, we're going to unearth Rousseau's extraordinary ideas and confront their startling relevance to our 21st century lives. We'll explore how this ancient wisdom can serve as an invaluable compass, guiding us through the complexities of modern freedom and offering a framework to understand the invisible chains that bind us today. Get ready to question not just your society, but your very understanding of what it means to be truly free. Let's embark on this journey to decode Rousseau's enduring legacy and discover how a 300-year-old book can still provide a radical blueprint for understanding and potentially reclaiming a more authentic, modern freedom. Hello there, and a very warm welcome. Have you ever stood before a towering, revered classic of philosophy, felt the weight of its reputation, and thought, "This is brilliant, I'm sure, but is it actually for me?" I know that feeling intimately. For years, I approached works like Jean-Jacques Rousseau's The Social Contract and Discourses with a certain trepidation, seeing them as monumental, yes, but also as dense, academic, and perhaps a little too far removed from the everyday concerns of modern life. They felt like artifacts, meticulously preserved in intellectual archives awaiting only the most dedicated scholars. But Rousseau, my friends, was anything but dusty. He was a force of nature in the Enlightenment, a singular, electrifying figure who wasn't content merely to observe the world. He demanded we question its very foundations. While many Enlightenment thinkers championed reason and progress, Rousseau dared to look backward, suggesting that much of what we call progress had, in fact, alienated us from our true selves. He was a radical, a defiant voice challenging the established order, an intellectual firebrand who saw through the glittering facade of civilization to the inequalities and injustices simmering beneath. His ideas about human nature, about the legitimacy of government, about freedom and the chains that bind us, these weren't polite academic musings. They were explosive pronouncements that rattled monarchies, ignited revolutionary fervor, and irrevocably altered the course of political thought. He wasn't just observing the game, he was rewriting the rulebook, a true rebel philosopher in every sense of the word. For the longest time, I, like many, relegated the social contract to the realm of historical curiosity, a critical text for political science majors or those prepping for an advanced history exam. I respected its status, understood its significance in a detached, intellectual way. But the more I immersed myself in Rousseau's audacious propositions, the more I truly grappled with his arguments, the clearer it became. This isn't just a historical document, a quaint relic from another era. No, what Rousseau penned in the mid-18th century is, in a profound and often unsettling way, the invisible instruction manual for our modern society. Think about it. Every time we vote, every time we debate the balance between individual liberty and collective good, every time we question the authority of our leaders, we are consciously or unconsciously engaging with the very concepts Rousseau so meticulously articulated. His work provides the theoretical underpinnings, the philosophical source code for the democratic ideals we cherish, the social structures we inhabit, and even the discontent we sometimes feel when those structures fail us. It's the unread owner's manual for the intricate machine that is our collective life, operating often unnoticed, yet profoundly shaping our experiences. And that, precisely, is the mission of this video series, to demystify this monumental text. We're going to pull the social contract and its companion discourses down from the rarefied air of academia and ground them firmly in our human experience. This isn't about rote memorization or jargon-filled lectures. It's about making complex, sometimes challenging, ideas accessible, relatable, and deeply relevant to your life and the world you navigate every single day. We'll explore Rousseau's revolutionary concepts not as abstract theories, but as human-centric insights that illuminate the origins of our political anxieties, the enduring quest for justice, and the perennial tension between individual freedom and societal order. We're here to understand, to question, and perhaps even to find some answers that resonate with our contemporary challenges. So, how exactly will we embark on this intellectual adventure? Our journey will be structured deliberately, unfolding Rousseau's ideas layer by layer. First, we'll kick things off by truly getting to know Jean-Jacques himself, the man behind the revolutionary pen, his tumultuous life story, and the scandalous ideas that made him an outcast and an icon. This context is crucial to understanding his unique perspective. From there, we'll plunge into the provocative depths of his discourse on the origin and basis of inequality among men, where he unpacks his controversial vision of humanity in a state of nature, the corrupting influence of burgeoning society, and the fateful birth of private property, a concept he viewed with deep skepticism. Following this foundational exploration, we'll then arrive at the crown jewel, the social contract itself. Here, we'll meticulously dissect his radical proposal for a legitimate political authority, exploring the profound concept of the general will and grappling with what it truly means to be both free and bound by a collective agreement. Finally, we'll draw all these threads together, examining Rousseau's immense and often contested legacy, critically assessing how his philosophy continues to inform our most pressing political debates, our ongoing struggles for equity and justice, and our fundamental understanding of what it means to coexist in a complex, interconnected world. Prepare yourself to challenge assumptions, to see familiar concepts with new eyes, and to engage with a philosopher whose ideas are as vital and disruptive today as they were centuries ago. Imagine a world before laws, before governments, before even the notion of mine or yours. This is where Jean-Jacques Rousseau invites us to begin our journey into the origins of inequality, a thought experiment he meticulously laid out in his discourse on the origin and basis of inequality among men. He asks us to strip away millennia of societal conditioning and contemplate what humanity was like in the state of nature. Rousseau painted a picture of early humans living as solitary beings, largely independent and self-sufficient. Their lives were simple, driven by two fundamental instincts. The first was amour de soi, a natural self-love or instinct for self-preservation. This meant seeking food when hungry, shelter from the elements, and rest when tired. It was a straightforward, unburdened existence focused purely on individual well-being. The second instinct, which Rousseau believed was equally innate, was pitié, or compassion. Humans, he argued, possessed an aversion to seeing other sentient beings suffer. If one encountered another in distress, a natural sympathy would arise, prompting aid or at least a reluctance to inflict harm. There was no complex morality, no deep reflection, no need for language as we understand it, and certainly no organized society. Without fixed dwellings, without agriculture, without the division of labor, there was no concept of property, no need for comparison, and thus no grounds for envy or pride. Humans were free, robust, and morally pure, living in harmony with nature and their own uncorrupted instincts. But this idyllic, albeit primitive, state couldn't last forever. Rousseau pinpoints the critical moment, the true fall from grace, not in any grand theological drama, but in a seemingly innocuous act. He famously declared the first man who, having enclosed a piece of ground, bethought himself of saying, "This is mine," and found people simple enough to believe him, was the real founder of civil society. This seemingly simple act, the assertion of private property, shattered the natural order. It wasn't just about claiming land, it was about laying the groundwork for a cascade of profound changes. Once property existed, it needed to be defended. This led to the formation of laws, institutions, and eventually the state, all designed ostensibly to protect everyone, but in reality, often serving to cement the advantages of the propertied few. With the establishment of property came the necessity of labor, the division of tasks, and the formation of more permanent social groups like families and villages. And this, crucially, introduced an entirely new dimension to human existence: comparison. When people lived in proximity, they inevitably began to notice differences. Who was stronger? Who built a better hut? Whose harvest was more bountiful? This marked the emergence of amour propre, a form of self-love that is contingent on the opinions of others. Unlike the natural, healthy amour de soi, amour propre thrives on external validation, on being perceived as superior or more successful. It ignites a relentless desire for recognition, status, and material possessions, not for their intrinsic value, but for what they signify in the eyes of others. This is the root of competition, jealousy, and vanity. We stopped living according to our authentic needs and desires and started living outside ourselves, constantly looking to others for our sense of worth. Authenticity was sacrificed on the altar of social approval, leading to a profound sense of alienation and a loss of our original, natural freedom. This brings us directly to a striking parallel in our modern world, one that Rousseau could never have foreseen, but would undoubtedly recognize as the ultimate manifestation of amour propre, the curated perfection and comparison culture of social media. Think about it. Our digital lives are often a carefully constructed performance. We meticulously select the most flattering photos, craft witty captions, and share only the highlights of our existence: the perfect holiday, the successful career milestone, the enviable meal. It's a relentless projection of an idealized self, designed to garner likes, shares, and comments, in essence, to receive validation from a vast anonymous audience. And what is the consequence? Just as Rousseau described for early civil society, we engage in constant, often subconscious comparison. We scroll through endless feeds, witnessing the seemingly flawless lives of others, measuring our own messy realities against their polished highlight reels. This inevitably fuels feelings of inadequacy, jealousy, and a persistent sense that we are somehow falling short. The need for external validation, the pursuit of digital status, and the anxiety born from constant comparison strip away our authentic selves, leaving us trapped in a perpetual cycle of striving to meet an external, often unattainable ideal. Did society, particularly in its hyper-connected modern form, truly ruin us, pulling us irrevocably away from a state of natural goodness? Rousseau's powerful discourses suggest that perhaps it did, and in doing so, laid the foundation for the profound inequalities and discontents that continue to plague us today. Welcome back to our journey through Jean-Jacques Rousseau's profound insights. In Chapter 1, we grappled with the notion of the state of nature and the fundamental question of how we transitioned into organized society. Now, in Chapter 2, we delve into a far more unsettling aspect, the phony deal, how we were tricked into a bad contract. This section reveals Rousseau's scathing critique of existing governments, arguing that many are not legitimate expressions of the general will, but rather elaborate deceptions, illegitimate contracts created by the wealthy to protect their own interests, all while feigning to protect everyone. Rousseau contended that the initial formation of civil society, far from being a noble agreement among equals, was often a masterstroke of manipulation. He describes a bad contract where the rich, possessing property and power, cleverly persuade the poor and property-less to accept laws and institutions that, on the surface, promise order, security, and justice for all. But beneath this veneer of universal benefit lies a more insidious truth. These laws primarily serve to solidify the existing power structure, to protect the assets of the wealthy, and to formalize inequalities under the guise of legitimate authority. The poor, yearning for stability and an end to the uncertainties of an unregulated existence, unwittingly consent to a system that perpetuates their disadvantage, trading a precarious freedom for a controlled subservience. They enter into a contract whose terms were never truly negotiable, a deal where one party dictated all the conditions. To truly grasp the essence of this phony deal, let's use an analogy. Imagine you're invited to play a game. It sounds exciting, a chance to compete, to win. But as you approach the board, you notice something unsettling. The person who invited you, who created the game, has already set up their pieces on the most strategic squares. In fact, they've started with all the winning pieces, while you're left with a handful of pawns scattered almost randomly. Furthermore, the rules of the game, though presented as fair and universal, are clearly designed to favor their starting position, making it incredibly difficult, if not impossible, for you to ever truly compete, let alone win. They might even earnestly tell you it's a fair game, that everyone has an equal chance, but the entire setup is inherently rigged. This is precisely Rousseau's point about many historical and even contemporary social contracts. They are games where the rules were written and the board was set by those who stood to gain the most, ensuring their perpetual advantage. This rigged game compels us to trade our natural liberty for a system that doesn't genuinely serve us. In Rousseau's philosophy, natural liberty is the freedom we possess in the state of nature, a raw, unconstrained freedom to act according to our own will, unburdened by societal norms or artificial laws. While it might be chaotic and without the comforts of civilization, it is fundamentally autonomous. The bad contract, however, asks us to surrender this profound self-determination, for what it promises is a superior civil liberty, the freedom enjoyed within an ordered society protected by laws. Yet, Rousseau argues that when these laws are not derived from the general will, when they primarily serve a select few, this exchange becomes a grand deception. We give up our inherent freedom not for true collective autonomy, but for a system that restricts our choices, channels our ambitions, and ultimately makes us dependent on the very structures that perpetuate our unequal standing. Our natural capacity for self-governance is replaced by a carefully constructed dependency where our lives are dictated by regulations that protect the property and power of others, not our collective flourishing. We are promised security, but at the cost of genuine empowerment, becoming cogs in a machine designed to run for someone else's benefit. Now, let's bring Rousseau's potent critique into our modern context and reflect. Think about systems in our own societies that, on the surface, present themselves as fair, just, and universally beneficial, but upon closer inspection, seem to yield deeply unequal outcomes. Consider our education systems. Every child has the right to an education, but do all schools, neighborhoods, or socio-economic backgrounds offer truly equivalent opportunities, resources, or pathways to success? Or our justice systems, the principle of equal before the law is sacrosanct, yet do financial resources, social standing, or systemic biases truly have no bearing on legal outcomes or access to effective representation? What about our economic frameworks, often championed as meritocracies where hard work is rewarded and anyone can climb to the top? Do all individuals truly start with the same opportunities, capital, networks, or inherited advantages, or are the playing fields fundamentally uneven, designed to perpetuate existing wealth and power? Even our democratic processes, with the promise of one person, one vote, can be influenced by campaign finance, lobbying, media control, or electoral district manipulation, subtly skewing outcomes and ensuring that certain interests are perpetually overrepresented while others are marginalized. Rousseau implores us to look beyond the stated intentions of these systems and critically examine their actual effects. Who truly benefits? Whose interests are consistently prioritized? Are we perhaps still living under the shadow of a phony deal where the promise of fairness masks a deeper structural inequality, continually trading our potential for genuine liberty for a system that primarily serves to maintain the status quo and the power of a select few? This isn't an invitation to cynicism, but a call to profound critical thinking, to question the fundamental agreements that shape our world and to discern whether they genuinely serve the collective good or merely perpetuate an ancient, self-serving deception. Welcome back. In our previous chapters, we grappled with the foundations of society, explored the state of nature, and understood Rousseau's critique of illegitimate power structures. Now we arrive at the heart of his masterpiece, the blueprint for a truly just and legitimate social contract. This isn't just theory, it's Rousseau's radical proposal for how we, as individuals, can live together freely and equally under a system we ourselves create and endorse. Rousseau understood that for any society to function, individuals must give up some of their absolute freedom, the freedom to do whatever they please that they enjoyed in the state of nature. But he vehemently rejected the idea that this surrender should be to a single ruler, a monarch, or an oppressive government. Such a surrender, he argued, simply recreates the master-slave dynamic. Instead, Rousseau proposed a revolutionary idea: we give up our individual power, not to a king, but to each other. Every single member of the community surrenders all their rights, not to a higher authority, but to the community as a whole. This act of complete alienation, as he calls it, is paradoxical yet brilliant. Because everyone gives up everything, everyone is equal. No one holds power over another. Instead, power resides collectively within the body of citizens. When I give myself to all, I give myself to no one in particular, and thus I gain back an equivalent of what I lost, along with the collective strength to preserve what is mine. This fundamental agreement, where each of us puts his person and all his power in common under the supreme direction of the general will, and in a body, receives each member as an indivisible part of the whole, is the very essence of the social contract. This collective body, formed by the union of all individuals, then operates under what Rousseau termed the general will. This is perhaps the most crucial and often misunderstood concept in the social contract. The general will is not simply the sum of individual desires. It's not a compromise reached after bargaining. Instead, the general will is the collective desire of the people, aimed solely and always at the benefit of the group. It is the rational, public-spirited will that seeks the common good. Think of it as the ultimate expression of civic virtue, what is truly best for everyone, not just what a majority might temporarily prefer. It represents the permanent interest of the community, an interest that is identical for all its members because it ensures their shared freedom and well-being. When the general will prevails, everyone is genuinely free because they are obeying laws they have, in essence, prescribed for themselves as part of the collective sovereign. To ensure this, Rousseau argued that citizens must engage in direct participation, actively deliberating and voting on laws that reflect this overarching common good. To grasp the power and nuance of the general will, we must sharply distinguish it from another concept, the will of all. The will of all is simply the sum total of private interests. Imagine every individual in society voting based purely on what benefits them personally, their family, or their specific faction. If you add up all these individual, self-interested votes, you get the will of all. It's a majority decision, perhaps, but it can be fragmented, contradictory, and ultimately detrimental to the broader society because it doesn't necessarily aim for what's good for everyone. The general will, by contrast, arises when individuals set aside their private interests and consider what is truly beneficial for the entire community. It requires citizens to think beyond themselves and their immediate desires, to engage in a process of civic deliberation aimed at discerning the true common good. It's about collective wisdom emerging from individual reflection rather than a mere aggregation of individual wants. Let's illustrate this with a relatable example: a sports team. Imagine a championship basketball team. You have star players, role players, a coach, and a specific strategy. Now consider a critical moment in the final game. The will of all scenario might look like this: the team's star player, known for his flashy dunks, might decide, I want to take this last shot even if I'm double-teamed, because it will boost my personal stats and make me look good. Another player might think, I want to rest on defense because I'm tired and I'll get more energy for the next possession. A third, feeling sidelined, might purposely not pass to the star player to demonstrate their own capability. If every player acted solely on their individual, private interests, wanting personal glory, avoiding exertion, or trying to prove a point, the team's overall performance would suffer dramatically. The sum of these private wills, the will of all in this context, might lead to chaos and a loss, despite potentially brilliant individual efforts. Now, let's consider the general will. For the team to win the championship, which is the ultimate common good for all members of the team, from the star player to the bench warmer, every player must act for the good of the team. The star player might decide, even though I want to dunk, the best play for the team right now is to pass to an open teammate for an easier shot that has a higher probability of success. A defensive specialist might sacrifice personal glory to make a crucial stop or set a screen, knowing it benefits the team's collective defense. The coach might implement a strategy that requires everyone to play a specific role, even if it means less individual spotlight for some, because it maximizes the team's chances of victory. In this scenario, individuals set aside their immediate, private desires, their will of all contributions, and consciously choose actions that serve the collective goal, winning the game. The general will here is the collective understanding and commitment to win the championship, and every action taken aligns with that higher purpose, ensuring the ultimate benefit for the entire group, including the star player who, by contributing to the win, achieves a greater, shared glory that far outweighs individual accolades. This is the essence of Rousseau's legitimate social contract. It's a pact where individuals don't lose their freedom, but transform it into a higher civil liberty. By surrendering their natural rights to the community as a whole, they become part of a collective sovereign that expresses the general will. This collective body, then, enacts laws that are truly just because they originate from and apply equally to all citizens, always aiming for that elusive, yet vital, common good. It's a vision of a society where self-governance isn't a fantasy, but a lived reality, ensuring liberty, equality, and justice for every single participant. Rousseau believed that through this contract, individuals would find true moral freedom, exchanging the impulses of appetite for the obedience to laws they have collectively made. In the next chapter, we'll delve deeper into how this general will is expressed through laws and the role of government, or what Rousseau called the magistrate, in upholding it. Welcome back to our deep dive into Jean-Jacques Rousseau's groundbreaking work. Today, in Chapter 4, titled We, the People Who's Really in Charge, we tackle one of Rousseau's most radical and enduring ideas, popular sovereignty. This concept asserts that the people themselves, collectively, are the ultimate authority, the true source of all legitimate power within a state. It's a powerful vision, one that challenges traditional notions of monarchy or even aristocratic rule, placing the crown, so to speak, firmly on the heads of the citizenry. Now, when Rousseau speaks of the sovereign, it's crucial to understand what he doesn't mean. He's not referring to a king, an emperor, a president, or even a parliament of elected officials. For Rousseau, the sovereign isn't a ruler, it is the active, collective body of all citizens. Imagine every single member of a society coming together, not as individuals pursuing private interests, but as a unified whole, willing the common good. This collective entity, this public person formed by the union of all, holds the supreme power. It's the moment individuals enter into the social contract, they pool their individual powers into this single, indivisible, and inalienable sovereign power. Each citizen, by participating, is both a subject, obeying the laws, and a sovereign, helping to create them. This is where the power resides, not in one person or a select few, but in the undivided will of the entire community. What guides this sovereign? It's what Rousseau calls the general will. The general will isn't merely the sum of all individual wills, nor is it simply the will of the majority. It's the will that aims at the common good, the collective interest of the entire body politic. And laws, in Rousseau's ideal state, are simply the clear, universal expression of this general will. This brings us to a critical function of law. It must be inherently general in nature. A law, to be legitimate, cannot target specific individuals or particular groups. It cannot dictate who gets a particular job, or tax only a handful of specific wealthy families, or punish one person for an act that others are allowed to commit with impunity. Instead, laws must apply equally to everyone, addressing abstract categories of people and actions, not concrete cases. For instance, a law about taxation must apply to all citizens under certain income brackets, not just Mr. Smith. A law about criminal justice must define actions as crimes and prescribe penalties for anyone who commits them. This generality is paramount because it ensures fairness, prevents arbitrary rule, and guarantees that everyone, in obeying the law, is ultimately obeying a rule they helped to create for the benefit of all, including themselves. Given this understanding of the sovereign and the general will, it becomes clear why Rousseau was deeply skeptical, even outright critical, of representative democracy as we often understand it today. His ideal was a form of direct democracy where citizens actively and directly participated in the legislative process. He believed that the general will, being inalienable and indivisible, could not truly be represented. To delegate your legislative power to someone else, he argued, was to give up your sovereignty. Representatives, he feared, would inevitably pursue their own interests or the interests of a faction rather than the true common good. He famously remarked that the English people, for example, think they are free, but they are gravely mistaken. They are free only during the election of members of Parliament. As soon as the members are elected, the people are enslaved. For Rousseau, true freedom lay in collectively authoring the laws one obeys. While he understood the practical challenges of direct democracy in large states, his philosophical insistence on it highlights his profound belief that citizens must remain continually engaged in the affairs of the state to preserve their liberty and the legitimacy of their government. Despite the logistical hurdles of achieving pure, direct democracy on a large scale, Rousseau's ideas resonate powerfully in many modern democratic practices and aspirations. When we speak of government by the people, we are echoing his fundamental principle of popular sovereignty. Consider modern-day referendums or plebiscites. These are direct votes by the populace on specific laws or constitutional changes, a clear, tangible instance of the general will expressing itself without intermediaries. Even more directly, we see the spirit of Rousseau in the rise of citizen assemblies or juries, where randomly selected citizens are tasked with deliberating on complex policy issues, free from party politics, and striving to arrive at a conclusion that serves the broader public interest. These mechanisms attempt to tap into the collective wisdom and shared commitment to the common good that Rousseau saw as the essence of legitimate governance. While representative systems are practically indispensable for most large modern nations, the underlying demand for accountability, transparency, and a government truly responsive to the will of its people rather than its rulers or special interests is a direct legacy of Rousseau's profound exploration into who really holds the reins of power. Welcome back. If you've joined us on this journey through Rousseau's The Social Contract, you've already navigated some profound ideas about liberty, equality, and the nature of legitimate government. But now, we arrive at what is arguably the most challenging, most frequently misinterpreted, and certainly the most controversial concept in the entire work, the assertion that a citizen can be forced to be free. It sounds like a paradox, doesn't it? An oxymoron that immediately sets off alarm bells. How can being forced to do something against your immediate inclination or private desires possibly make you more free? Our modern sensibilities, deeply rooted in liberal individualism, tend to equate freedom with the absence of external coercion, the ability to do as we please without interference. So, when Rousseau suggests the state might compel us to obey a law we personally disagree with under the banner of liberating us, it strikes many as the very definition of tyranny. And history has indeed shown us how this phrase, stripped of its nuance, has been tragically misused to justify horrifying acts of oppression. But to understand Rousseau, we must first grapple with his unique definition of freedom. For Rousseau, true freedom isn't merely the license to follow every whim or impulse. That, he would argue, is slavery to one's own appetites and passions, a form of natural liberty that is ultimately chaotic and unsustainable in a civil society. Instead, genuine freedom, or moral liberty, lies in self-governance. It's about obeying a law that you, as a rational and moral being, have prescribed for yourself. This is a crucial distinction. When you adhere to the general will, the collective will of the people aimed at the common good, you are not obeying an external master. Instead, you are obeying yourself, but a higher, more rational, civic-minded version of yourself. Think of it this way. Imagine you've set a long-term goal for yourself, say, to get fit and healthy. You know that regular exercise is essential, even though some mornings, your private desire, your particular will, screams at you to stay in bed, hit snooze, and avoid the discomfort of a workout. But if you force yourself out of bed, put on your running shoes, and head to the gym, are you truly being forced in a way that diminishes your freedom? Or are you, in fact, exercising a higher form of freedom? You are compelling your immediate, lazy self to act in accordance with your own true, long-term, rational will, the will that desires health and well-being. By overcoming the internal resistance of your particular desires, you are achieving a greater freedom, freedom from lethargy, freedom from potential illness, freedom to live a more vibrant life. In Rousseau's view, the general will functions similarly for the body politic. When a citizen's private interests conflict with the general will, and the state, embodying that general will, compels the citizen to obey, it is not imposing an alien will upon them. Rather, it is guiding them back to their own true will, their own rational interest as a member of the sovereign, which is always aligned with the common good. The individual who disobeys the general will is seen as a slave to their own passions, misguided by self-interest, and therefore not truly free. The act of enforcement, then, becomes an act of liberation, removing the chains of private appetite and aligning the individual with their own true, moral liberty as a citizen. Of course, this is where the theory becomes profoundly perilous in practice. While Rousseau envisioned this concept within the framework of a small, homogeneous republic where direct participation made the general will genuinely discernible, History has twisted this idea into a justification for some of the most heinous forms of totalitarianism. Dictatorships and revolutionary zealots have often claimed to embody the general will, silencing dissent and oppressing individuals under the pretense of forcing them to be free for their own good or the good of the collective. The danger lies in who gets to interpret and define the general will, and how its supposed purity can be used to legitimize an authoritarian power structure that crushes individual rights and freedoms, replacing genuine self-governance with unquestioning obedience to a self-appointed elite. Rousseau himself was deeply concerned with safeguards, the necessity of a small state, an educated citizenry, the prohibition of factions, and the idea that the general will must emerge from deliberation focused solely on the common good, not from a clash of particular interests. Totalitarian regimes conveniently ignore these caveats, severing the concept from its intricate philosophical underpinnings. So, while Rousseau's intent was to outline a path to a truly moral and self-governing society, his most controversial idea serves as a stark reminder of the delicate balance between individual liberty and collective will, and the immense responsibility that comes with interpreting philosophical concepts in the real world. It forces us to continually ask who defines freedom and at what cost. Welcome back as we delve deeper into the intricate philosophy of Jean-Jacques Rousseau's The Social Contract. We've explored the origins of society, the nature of legitimate authority, and the elusive concept of the general will. But once a people have come together and forged a social contract, how do they establish the right laws, and how do they ensure that these laws and the spirit of the nation itself endure? Rousseau, ever the pragmatist beneath his idealism, understood that founding a state was not merely a matter of philosophical agreement, it required a guiding hand and a unifying spirit. In this chapter, we turn our attention to two of his most provocative and perhaps controversial ideas, the legislator and civil religion. These concepts address the profound challenge of not just creating a state, but imbuing it with a soul. Imagine a group of individuals, fresh from signing their social contract. They now form a collective, a sovereign body, but they are still unrefined, perhaps unaccustomed to thinking beyond their immediate self-interest. How can such a people, still learning to navigate the complexities of their new shared existence, devise laws that truly reflect and promote the general will, laws that are both just and suitable for their unique character? Rousseau recognizes this paradox. The people desire their own good, but they don't always know what that good is. They might be swayed by temporary passions, misinformation, or partial interests. This is where the legislator steps in. Rousseau envisions the legislator not as a king or an executive ruler, but as an extraordinary figure, almost God-like in their wisdom and foresight. This individual stands outside the established government, possessing no direct executive power or authority to enforce their will. Their brilliance lies in their ability to perceive the true nature of a people, their climate, their customs, and their potential, and then to propose a body of laws perfectly suited to foster their virtue and prosperity. The legislator is a visionary architect, laying the foundational blueprint for a nation's entire legal and moral framework. Think of historical figures like Moses giving laws to the Israelites, Lycurgus establishing the Spartan constitution, or Numa founding Roman religious rites. These are the kinds of mythic, larger-than-life figures Rousseau had in mind. Crucially, the legislator proposes laws, but the sovereign people, the collective body of citizens, must ratify them. The legislator cannot compel obedience, they must persuade. And how does one persuade an unsophisticated populace to embrace radical new laws that demand sacrifice and long-term vision? Rousseau suggests that the legislator might often invoke divine authority, presenting the laws as decrees from the heavens. This, he argues, is a necessary expedient in the early stages of a nation, lending gravity and sacredness to rules that might otherwise be dismissed. It's a pragmatic acknowledgement that human reason alone might not always be enough to unite and motivate a nascent society towards a common, virtuous path. The legislator, therefore, is a testament to Rousseau's belief in the power of moral genius and the need for extraordinary leadership in the foundational moments of a state. But even the most perfect laws, carefully crafted by a wise legislator, are not enough to sustain a society. Laws govern actions, but what about the spirit? What about the internal commitment, the love of duty, and the deep-seated loyalty that binds citizens together? This brings us to Rousseau's equally influential concept of civil religion. Rousseau was deeply suspicious of traditional, dogmatic religions, particularly Christianity as it was practiced in his time, believing that its emphasis on a heavenly kingdom often undermined loyalty to the earthly state. He saw how religious divisions could tear a society apart. His solution was not to abolish religion, but to establish a civil religion, a simple, public faith designed not for individual salvation, but purely for civic utility. This civil religion would have only a few straightforward dogmas, presented not as theological truths, but as articles of social faith. These articles include belief in a powerful, intelligent, benevolent divinity who foresees and provides in a future life with rewards for the just and punishments for the wicked, and, most importantly, in the sanctity of the social contract and the laws. There would be one negative dogma: intolerance. While individuals are free to hold whatever private religious beliefs they wish, Rousseau insists that no one should be allowed to profess belief in the civil religion while simultaneously acting contrary to its principles. To do so, to pledge allegiance to the state's foundational beliefs and then undermine them, is to be a traitor, an enemy of society, and should be met with severe penalties, even death. The purpose of civil religion is clear: to instill civic virtue, to foster a love for one's country, and to reinforce the moral obligations inherent in the social contract. It creates a shared moral compass, transforming legal duties into sacred commitments. It's about cultivating a profound sense of belonging and mutual obligation, ensuring that citizens are not just obedient subjects, but truly patriotic members of the body politic, willing to sacrifice for the common good. Now, you might be thinking, what does any of this have to do with us today? While we certainly don't have literal legislators invoking divine authority or a state-mandated civil religion with capital punishment for non-believers, the underlying principles Rousseau explored are still remarkably relevant. How do modern nations foster a sense of shared identity and civic virtue? Consider the widespread rituals and symbols of contemporary patriotism, the singing of national anthems, the pledges of allegiance in schools, the veneration of national flags and monuments, the celebration of national holidays, and the emphasis on shared civic values like democracy, freedom, justice, and equality. These are, in essence, our modern forms of civil religion. They are not theological, but they serve a similar function: to unite diverse populations, to remind citizens of their mutual commitments, to elevate the nation's ideals above individual interests, and to foster a collective sense of purpose and belonging. When we stand for our anthem, when we recount national histories, when we celebrate heroes who embody our civic ideals, we are participating in a secular liturgy that reinforces the sanctity of our own social contract, however unwritten it may be. These shared beliefs and practices aim to bind us together, to remind us what it means to be a member of this nation with its particular duties and privileges. This brings us to a crucial question for our own time. Is a shared belief system, even a secular civic one, truly essential for a healthy and cohesive society today? In an increasingly globalized, diverse, and pluralistic world, where individual autonomy and freedom of thought are highly prized, how do we balance the need for social cohesion with respect for differing beliefs and identities? Can a nation truly thrive if its citizens hold vastly different, even contradictory, views on fundamental values? Or does the pursuit of unity risk suppressing necessary dissent and diversity? The legacy of Rousseau's legislator and civil religion forces us to confront these uncomfortable but vital questions about the very soul of a nation. Welcome back. We've journeyed through the complex landscape of Rousseau's thought, exploring the origins of inequality, the fundamental principles of the social contract, and the elusive concept of the general will. But what does all this theory mean for your life, right here, right now? How can we move beyond the intellectual exercise and truly apply these profound ideas to the everyday contracts, both spoken and unspoken, that govern our existence? This is where our action plan, the 7-day Social Contract Challenge, comes in. It's a practical, week-long journey designed to help you observe, question, and engage with the agreements and expectations that shape your world. This isn't about grand political revolution overnight, but about fostering a deeper understanding of your role within society and empowering you to think critically about the contracts you live by. Are you ready to dive in? Let's begin. Days 1 and 2 observe unmasking the unwritten rules. For the first 2 days of our challenge, your mission is to become a keen observer of your surroundings, focusing specifically on the unwritten rules that dictate behavior. Think about your workplace, your social circles, or even your family dynamics. Identify just one of these unspoken norms. Perhaps it's the expectation to respond to emails late into the evening, even if it's outside working hours. Or maybe it's the subtle pressure to conform to a certain dress code or opinion within your friend group. Once you've identified one, ask yourself, who truly benefits from this unwritten rule? Is it genuinely serving the collective good of the group, promoting harmony and efficiency? Or does it primarily serve the interests of a particular individual, a power structure, or an unspoken hierarchy? Rousseau would urge us to look beyond surface-level convenience and question the underlying power dynamics. Is this contract truly a result of mutual agreement for the common good, or a subtle form of coercion? Take notes, reflect, and just observe for these first 2 days. Days 3 and 4 question policy and the general will. Now that you've honed your observational skills on the micro level, let's zoom out to the macro. For days 3 and 4, your task is to research a local or national policy. This could be anything from a new city ordinance on recycling, a proposed change in educational funding, or even a national debate on health care or taxation. Once you've chosen a policy, delve into its details. Read news articles from various perspectives. check government websites for official explanations, and perhaps even look at dissenting opinions. Your central question here is, does this policy seem to serve the general will? Does it genuinely aim for the common good, considering the welfare of all citizens, rather than just a specific faction or interest group? Rousseau believed that true laws emanate from the general will, meaning they are universally applicable and designed to benefit the entire community. It's a challenging concept, but your goal isn't to declare definitively whether a policy is the general will, but to critically assess whether its intent and potential impact align with that ideal. Does it foster equality, liberty, and the well-being of the whole, or does it disproportionately benefit some at the expense of others? Days 5 and 6 discuss and engage shaping the social fabric. On days 5 and 6, it's time to move beyond observation and questioning and into active participation. First, find a friend, family member, or colleague you trust and have a conversation. Pick one aspect of a fairer society, perhaps fairer work conditions, better public services, or enhanced environmental protection, and discuss what that would look like to you both. Share your insights from the previous days. What are the unwritten rules or policies you've observed that either help or hinder this vision? The goal here isn't to win an argument, but to engage in thoughtful dialogue, explore different perspectives, and collectively imagine what a more just social contract might entail. Second, find one small, tangible way to engage with your local community. This could be anything from signing a local petition, volunteering an hour of your time for a community initiative, attending a public town hall meeting, or even simply reaching out to a local community group to learn more about their work. Rousseau emphasized the importance of active citizenship. Even the smallest act of engagement can be a step towards shaping the social contract and ensuring your voice and the voices of your fellow citizens are heard. This is where the abstract concept of popular sovereignty begins to take root in concrete action. Day 7 reflect chains and freedom. Finally, on day 7, take some quiet time for personal reflection. Grab a journal or simply sit with your thoughts. Your task is to ponder Rousseau's famous opening line, "Man is born free, and everywhere he is in chains." Apply this to your own life. In what areas do you feel truly free? Where do you experience genuine autonomy, choice, and self-determination, free from undue external pressures or restrictive chains? Conversely, in what areas do you feel you are in chains? Are these chains societal expectations, economic constraints, personal obligations, or perhaps even self-imposed limitations? Are they chains that are necessary for the functioning of a civil society, or are they unjust bonds that could and should be broken? This reflection isn't about judgment, but about profound self-awareness. Understanding the nature of your own freedom and your own constraints is the first step towards thoughtfully navigating and, perhaps, even reshaping the social contracts that define your personal universe. This 7-day challenge is just the beginning. It's an invitation to cultivate a lifelong habit of critical observation, thoughtful questioning, and active engagement. Rousseau's ideas aren't confined to dusty academic texts. They are living principles that can empower each of us to be more conscious participants in the ongoing creation of our shared social contract. Thank you for joining me on this journey. I encourage you to carry these insights forward and continue to explore the profound implications of the social contract in your daily life. Rousseau, with a clarity that stings centuries later, fundamentally challenged our comfortable assumptions about society. He argued that the very fabric of modern civilization, from its laws to its customs, essentially constitutes a social contract that we are all born into. It's a contract, however, we never explicitly signed. Unlike a mutual agreement freely entered into by equals, Rousseau posited that this inherited contract often serves as a cunning mechanism, subtly, and sometimes not so subtly, designed to solidify the power and privilege of a select few. Think about it: the rise of private property, the establishment of legal systems to protect those possessions, the division of labor, and the hierarchies that naturally emerged from these developments. Rousseau saw them not as inevitable advancements, but as deliberate constructions. These structures, he contended, stripped individuals of their natural freedom and equality, replacing it with a form of civil liberty that often amounted to little more than sophisticated chains. The powerful, the wealthy, and the influential crafted rules and norms, ostensibly for the common good, but in reality to maintain their advantageous positions, ensuring that the majority remained subservient. Their natural rights gradually eroded under the guise of order and progress. This isn't just about economic disparities. It's about the very foundational principles of justice and fairness being compromised from the outset, leading to a system where those who started with more could leverage their position to further concentrate power and resources, trapping others in a cycle of dependence and inequality. It's a profound critique that forces us to question the legitimacy of the societal frameworks we so often take for granted. But Rousseau wasn't merely a critic, he offered a powerful vision for a different kind of freedom. He distinguishes sharply between what he calls natural freedom, the unbounded liberty to follow one's impulses and desires without constraint, and civil freedom, which he championed as the only true and meaningful form of liberty for a rational human being. Natural freedom, in his view, is ultimately a form of enslavement to one's own appetites and passions, a state of unthinking automatism. True freedom, in contrast, emerges when individuals collectively decide to live under laws that they themselves have authored, not for individual gain, but for the common good, what he famously termed the general will. This isn't about compromising your personal desires entirely, but about recognizing that genuine liberty comes from participating in a system where the rules are designed to benefit everyone equally. When you obey a law that you, as part of the sovereign collective, have helped create for the benefit of all, you are not surrendering your freedom, you are actively asserting it. You are, in essence, obeying yourself, but a higher collective self, dedicated to justice and equality. This radical concept turns the notion of freedom on its head, moving it from a purely individualistic pursuit to a collective endeavor. It suggests that our deepest human potential for autonomy and moral agency is realized not in isolation, but in a community where we actively participate in defining the very terms of our shared existence, ensuring that the laws we live under reflect a genuine commitment to the welfare and freedom of every single member. It's freedom through collective self-governance, not through unrestrained ego. This leads directly to Rousseau's third crucial takeaway: citizenship is not a passive status, but an active, ongoing verb. It demands our unwavering participation, vigilance, and commitment. If true freedom lies in living under laws derived from the general will, then the integrity of that general will, and consequently, the fairness and legitimacy of those laws, depends entirely on the continuous engagement of every citizen. A truly free society cannot simply be inherited or maintained through sporadic actions. It requires constant questioning of existing rules, a perpetual readiness to scrutinize the structures of power, and an active role in shaping the very future of our shared existence. When citizens become complacent, when they delegate their sovereignty entirely to representatives without oversight, or when they allow special interests to hijack the legislative process, the general will inevitably falters. The social contract then reverts to its original, exploitative form, serving the few at the expense of the many. Rousseau's work is a powerful reminder that democracy is not a spectator sport. It's a demanding, active process of deliberation, debate, and collective decision-making. It means holding our leaders accountable, challenging injustice, and collaboratively working to refine and improve the laws and institutions that govern us. Being a citizen, for Rousseau, is a profound moral responsibility, a call to continually strive towards a society where liberty, equality, and justice are not just ideals, but lived realities, forged and maintained through the tireless efforts of an engaged and enlightened populace. It is in this ongoing struggle, this ceaseless participation, that the promise of the social contract finds its truest expression. We've journeyed through Rousseau's profound, often challenging ideas. We've wrestled with the concept of the general will, confronted the paradox of being forced to be free, and considered the very foundations of our collective existence. But his work isn't merely a historical artifact. It's a living, breathing challenge to us, here and now. It asks us to look closely at the invisible threads that weave our societies together, the unspoken agreements that govern our lives. This brings us to a crucial question for you, our engaged audience. If you could step into the shoes of a legislator, a philosopher king, or even just a concerned citizen given an unprecedented opportunity, what is one rule in our modern social contract that you would rewrite, and why? Think about the fundamental principles that guide our interactions, our laws, our institutions. Is it an economic principle that dictates resource distribution? Is it a social norm that influences public discourse? Perhaps a political convention that shapes representation, or even an educational tenet that molds future generations? Consider the vast array of implicit and explicit rules that form the bedrock of our shared life. Would you challenge the notion of absolute private property, as Rousseau himself did, or perhaps redefine the scope of individual liberties versus collective good in an age of digital interconnectedness? Would you propose a universal basic income as a new form of social security, or advocate for a radical overhaul of electoral systems to ensure a more direct expression of the general will? Maybe your focus is on environmental responsibility, suggesting that the natural world needs a stronger voice, a more explicit protection woven into our collective agreement. Or perhaps you see a need to reform the very mechanisms of justice, aiming for rehabilitation over retribution. This isn't just an intellectual exercise, it's an invitation to active, critical participation in the ongoing construction of our societal framework. Your ideas, your justifications, your vision for a more just or more free society are incredibly valuable. Head down to the comments section below and share your thoughts. Let's ignite a thoughtful, impassioned discussion about the contracts we live by. What would you change, and what compelling reasons would you offer for that transformation? If this deep dive into Rousseau's world has sparked new reflections, challenged your assumptions, or simply broadened your understanding of the foundational ideas that underpin our modern political landscape, then please take a moment to engage with us. If this video made you think, If it prompted even a single new question in your mind about the nature of freedom, authority, and collective life, then we kindly ask you to hit that like button. A simple click helps us understand what kind of content resonates most deeply with you and signals to the wider YouTube algorithm that these are ideas worth exploring. And if you're keen to continue this journey of critical inquiry, to delve deeper into life-changing ideas from philosophy, history, and social theory, then don't hesitate to subscribe to our channel. Joining our community means you won't miss out on future explorations of seminal texts and thinkers who continue to shape our world. We're committed to bringing these complex, profound concepts to you in an accessible, engaging format, fostering a space for intellectual growth and spirited debate. Your subscription is an affirmation that such dialogues are not just academic exercises, but essential for an informed, active citizenry. But don't let the conversation end here. The true power of these ideas, especially those as fundamental as Rousseau's social contract, lies in their discussion and application. So, consider sharing this video with a friend, a colleague, or a family member who loves a good debate, someone who isn't afraid to challenge established norms or dive into complex ethical and political questions. Perhaps you know someone who's passionate about social justice, political reform, or simply understanding the hidden mechanics of society. Share it with them, and then perhaps engage in a one-on-one dialogue about what you've learned. What are their thoughts on the general will? Do they believe in the possibility of true collective freedom? Or, if you're feeling particularly inspired to go straight to the source, I encourage you to try reading the first chapter of The Social Contract by Jean-Jacques Rousseau this week. You might be surprised by how accessible, yet profoundly impactful, his original words remain. Reading him directly offers an unfiltered perspective, allowing you to form your own interpretations and draw your own conclusions, free from secondary analysis. It's an intellectual adventure, a direct encounter with one of history's most influential minds. You can easily find it online or at your local library. See how his arguments unfold in their original context, and then bring your insights back to our community. Because, ultimately, Rousseau's legacy reminds us that the fight for true freedom is not a singular event. It is an enduring, often arduous, and perpetually relevant struggle. It is a battle fought not just on battlefields or in parliaments, but within the very fabric of our everyday lives, in our choices, our discussions, and our willingness to question the status quo. It demands active participation, a critical spirit, and an unwavering commitment to shaping a world where justice and liberty are not mere ideals, but lived realities for all. The social contract is not a fixed document signed centuries ago and forgotten. It is a dynamic, living agreement that we, the people, are constantly renegotiating, whether we realize it or not. To truly be free, we must continually engage with its terms, challenge its injustices, and strive collectively towards a more perfect union, one guided by a genuine general will that serves the common good. Thank you for joining us on this intellectual journey. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep fighting for the contract you believe in.